Let's switch over to the Ohio State Buckeyes. Oregon and Ohio State are no doubt the two favorites coming out of the Big Ten this year as far as national championship contenders. The Ohio State Buckeyes have been players on that team have been quoted as saying it is national championship or bust. And it really feels like for Ryan Day, especially, it's time to put up or shut up, right? He's lost to Michigan the last 3 years. You look at those two teams on paper, I don't know that that streak continues. And so if Ohio State is able to beat Michigan this year, years past, that's been the de facto, Big Ten East championship game, right? We get rid of divisions this year. Ohio State has some interesting games on this schedule. Not the most difficult schedule, I don't think, but as we get into it, I believe they're set at 10.5 as well for their team win total. Where are you leaning initially as you look at that line?
Looking at their win total, it is 10.5. It's a strong favorite to bet the over. It's minus 150 to take the over, plus 120 to say that they'll lose 2 games or more.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm at. If they lose more than 2 regular season games, that is an abject failure. Yes, they will still, more than 1 regular season game. I think that's an abject failure because that means they split with Oregon and Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's a loss to Michigan, whole buddy, like
Yeah,
he might get left at. They might. Is that at home this? It is at home, so they might drive him to a tarmac to leave him on the tarmac this year. So I don't know. It's interesting to see how the schedule plays out because they really only have the 2 tricky road games at Oregon and at Penn State. You've been very vocal about not trusting Penn State this year to win a big one, and you feel like their window's closed. So I guess that means that in your mind that win at Oregon, win against Michigan, and you're golden, and you might even have room for a slip up and still win the Big Ten. But yeah, winning the Big Ten is the bar, and beyond that, winning the national championship is the bar. If it doesn't happen this year for Ryan Day, I'm concerned that it never will because he has the most talented roster he's ever had. He doesn't have Jim Harbaugh looming over his shoulder. He has a reloading Michigan. He has an Oregon that's going to be, new to the conference and figuring things out in the Big Ten and traveling way more miles over the course of the year than he is. And you have a Penn State that's trying to get on their feet and figure out their offense. So they're by far and away the preseason class of the Big Ten. They need to prove it on the field this year for me to consider it successful.
I think Ohio State has one of the toughest 3-game stretches in conference of anybody in the country. They've got at Oregon. They do have a bye week, October 19th, but then they host Nebraska and then travel to Beaver Stadium to take on Penn State. The bye week between Oregon and Nebraska is huge because I think that Oregon game, whether you win or lose, like that's a season defining game. I think you want that bye week to kind of catch your breath, reassess, and then potentially take on an undefeated Nebraska team at home that next week before you go to Penn State. Right now, I might be a little bit more afraid of Nebraska than I am Penn State. We just don't know enough about that Nittany Lion offense right now. But after that, Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana, and Michigan are who's left on that schedule. And that Michigan team, Trey, there's a lot of projections that even have Michigan ending up as low as 7-5, just with the roster turnover. There's no clear cut QB1 as of right now heading into fall camp. So I don't know. I agree. I feel like the Oregon game aside, I think you get one. You get one loss on this schedule. Take care of the rest of your business. Probably rematch with Oregon in the Big Ten championship game, and then at that point, if you're not winning out with the likes of Will Howard at quarterback, Quinshon Judkins, and TreVeyon Henderson running the football, what they've got on that defense coming back with the pass rush experience, Caleb Downs in the secondary, like there is no excuse for Ohio State this year. And to me, to not go at least 11-1 and quite honestly end up in the national championship game, I think Ohio State fans are going to riot.
I'm right there with you. And if you're an Ohio State fan and you disagree and you think we have the pulse of the fan base completely wrong, please let us know, because from the outside looking in, it sure does seem like you guys are frustrated and itching for a championship for the first time since that first 14 playoff. So it's been a long time. That's a long drought for Ohio State. Most programs would kill for a 10-year drought, but 10 years is torture for Ohio State fans.
That's true. Let me ask you this as we close Ohio State. Who else in the country do you think could do a better job than what Ryan Day has done, right? I mean, he's lost, 3 conference games in his tenure, and all 3 of them are to Michigan. Isn't that right?
I think he slipped up again.
At Penn
He's
State,
been
maybe?
upset. He's been upset a couple one time. Did he lose to Purdue, or was that still
Maybe yeah, that might have been the Jeff Brom Spoilermakers?
I think that was the Ryan Day era, but I might be mixing my years up there. But yeah, I mean, even if that's the case, the point still stands that he's just been a couple of, and let's be honest, this past year, it was a couple of missed plays away from beating Michigan, right? Like they are driving to win that game in the Big House, and then you lose the storybook ending for Harbaugh. Ohio State probably wins the national championship if they get in this year, because I think they take the same route that Michigan did. So yeah, it's championship or bust. And I don't know, to answer your question, I don't know who would have done a better job than Ryan Day at this point. But when Ohio State fans got spoiled with Urban Meyer beating Michigan and just becoming a given that they were going to beat Michigan, and that goes all the way back to Jim Tressel as well.
Yeah.
You get spoiled with that. And I think you start to see, well, man, if Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer could do it, this guy just isn't up to that standard. And we have a high standard. And they have earned a high standard at Ohio State. So I'm not trying to say that their expectations are too high, because I think they have rightfully high standards. But with the rosters and with the way that Michigan was completely engineered to beat Ryan Day's Ohio State team, I don't know. Like Nick Saban obviously probably would have figured it out. Kirby Smart might have figured it out. But if you're talking about attainable alternatives, I don't think there's anybody that would have done better than Ryan Day.
Ohio State head coach Nick Saban.
If he loses to Michigan this year, Ohio State will make Saban say no. They will make Saban say no.
They might put out an Indeed ad. Just get everybody applying for the job. See what fish bite. I agree. I think Ohio State has the highest expectation on them of any team this year, and that includes Texas, that includes Alabama. That I think it's more maybe nervous expectation that I feel like some of their fans are maybe looking for a reason to not like Kalen DeBoer. I mean, it's just he's set up for failure right at Alabama. Like, you're following the greatest of all time. That's a tough fiddle to play, but I think Ohio State, without a doubt, has the highest pressure and level of expectations on them of any team in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. And Garrett and I talked last week about how that level of pressure and expectation probably ran Kyle McCord out of town. And I don't think it's probably. I think it definitely ran Kyle McCord out of town. And how much he's just going to have fun playing college football at Syracuse this year without the weight of those lofty expectations. But again, rightful lofty expectations. They deserve it as a program. They've earned the right to have those lofty expectations.
Gracious him. How about